welcome to this month's interview. And we are super, super honored this month to have Melanie Rushing here. And she is exactly what I've been looking for, actually, everywhere. She's exactly what I've been looking for. Because not only did she play at a collegiate level, and she played at University of Redlands in California, and she also has coached at a division, and she has coached in a collegiate level at Kalamazoo College in Michigan. So she's been, a little bit everywhere, but she has a master's in sports performance and psychology from the University of Denver. She has 8 years of experience running sports psych workshops, and she has also taught sports psychology for 5 years. So, she is brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And she's been incorporating this stuff in real life. She's not just in academia for 3 years. She's been incorporating this into her programs. And what is super exciting about today is because Melanie is awesome and I love her. She has volunteered to give a very super special giveaway. So to the first 3 people only that email her, she will give you a free half-hour session, which normally would be a $50 value because each individual session with her would be $100. And she's giving you a half hour for free for the first 3 people that email her at Mel, M-E-L, at mentalsweetspot.com. So, without further ado, let's dive right in. Welcome, Melanie. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you are exactly what I'm looking for, because everybody has that work with sports psychology. And now, Melanie is also a mom to a very young, beautiful little boy who was in a Harry Potter costume for Halloween, which, made me love her even more. So she has a lot of roles, which I just think is like an amazing thing to be able to do. But let's get to your story, Melanie. Let's talk about what struggles brought you to studying sports psychology?
Well, thank you again for having me, Julianne. I'm really excited to be here. I'm new into this part of the business, but not at all new to sports psych, so I love that we get to share it now. So thank you again for having me. So my story began way back when I was playing when I was a little kid. So I was always the kid that was way too hard on herself. I was the helmet thrower. I have a distinct memory of coming back from a strikeout or something. I don't even remember. My poor teammate just tried to give me a high five. I'm like, "You're good, it's cool." And I just went, bam, and smacked her so hard. She's like, "Are you kidding me?" That was the moment I realized I was a little too overboard. But it wasn't until really college. So I played with great teammates that went to big D1 schools, and I learned from them, and I made an impact on the same team as they did, but never got picked up because I guarantee it, my mental game. I got to a great program, University of Redlands, and we went to regionals. All 4 years I was there. It was a great team. I was performing well, but it still wasn't the same. So junior year finally caught up with me, and I actually got benched. So my coach was like, "I can't figure out how else to help you, so you're going to take some time off." So I took some time off and read this book called Mind Gym, which was an awesome book. It's a really cool, straightforward read. This guy's worked with athletes across many different sports, so it really applies the concepts in a way that are easily understandable. And it was like right away the moment of like, oh, I don't have to be miserable. I don't have to beat myself up after something stupid. Like, I was completely miserable. And then what really got to me was realizing that it wasn't just on me. It wasn't just me being hard on myself because I want to do well. I was letting down my team, because it's selfish when you're that into your own head that you're not helping your teammates out, and you're bringing the focus to yourself and your attitude. So that was really a turning point for me. And then it just got better and better. I've really grasped onto it, went to get my master's, and I just soaked up every class. I love this stuff. I've been using it with my teams. And I just really think it helps kind of unlock that extra potential and really just gets you out of your own way. So this is not magic. There are strategies involved just like you do drills and fundamentals with your physical game. But I love that this stuff unleashes it. And on, I guess, a more personal note, I ended up leaving Kalamazoo to follow my husband back here to Florida, and had decided, like, yeah, I'll do some sports psych stuff. But it was kind of casual, didn't really have a good idea. I was about to give birth to our son, Patrick, and went into labor. Everything seemed fine, and then the little booger got stuck. And he had to go to the ICU for a week and a half. He was actually on this, it was a really cool therapy. My nerd side came out. He was on a cooling pad, so he was basically a little popsicle boy for 3 days. It slowed down his vital organs enough to let his brain heal. So long story short, he's fine. He's doing really well now. But
He's gorgeous. He's gorgeous.
Thank you. I think so, but I'm kind of biased. But really the thing that hit home and made me realize I have to do this business is the mental skills that I used on the field that seemed like, it's great for softball. It helped me get through that time. Like, focusing on what's important, controlling the controllables. God, there were so many things out of our control. Like, all these new medical terms they're throwing at us, the what ifs. Our family was there. They were trying to ask questions and figure it out too. Nobody had real answers. We couldn't really figure it out. That really was what got me through and kept me calm enough in a crappy circumstance, forgive my language. But that was when I knew, like, okay, no, I have to share this stuff with more people, get it out there.
Oh my God. So this is, there's so much value to this here, guys. So I hope you're taking notes. I loved that you throwing a book out there because, I'm a big nerd with reading. So Mind Gym was the book, guys, if you missed that. Mm-hmm. But I love how you're talking about, basically how developing the mental game really develops your mental game for life. Because I think you'll find this as well. The people who are the negative people on the field are the negative people in real life who can't seem to get their stuff together, and they can't seem to get stuff done because they're just constantly blocking and self-sabotaging. And that's why, one thing they talked about at High Performance Academy is really making sure you're only surrounding yourself with positive people for the most part, because dealing with negative people, it's just like a virus. It just completely spreads around. So that's why, guys, sometimes there's some toxic team environments out there, and there are teams that have reputations for that. So let's steer clear of those, shall we?
Absolutely.
So I think what's interesting, though, is most of the time with young athletes, they are not the ones to admit that they struggle with the mental game. A lot of the time it's their parents, and sometimes I almost think in certain cases it's the parents displacing, because they played sports and they're just assuming a physical glitch is mental for their kids, Mm-hmm. But tell us a little bit about how you would talk to a parent about some things that they could do to help with the improvement of their child's mental game.
One thing I would start with is that distinction you said between making sure we're not projecting our own experiences with sport, because that's what we base our knowledge on, is what we experience. But whether it's your child or just another kid you're coaching or just another kid you see down the road, mm-hmm. you have to kind of check your biases and check your personal experience. Step one. If it's your kid, they're most likely picking up the same stuff you did, so it probably is similar. But then I think the biggest thing for me is a lot of times it seems like parents, especially, and coaches, we go straight to fixing. What's wrong? What can I fix? And sometimes there isn't anything to be fixed in that moment. Sometimes in a bat, in a lesson even, you don't need to fix something every pitch. You need to see trends. So you can translate the same thing as a parent watching your kid on the field. The parent who's yelling out something every pitch. Hey, Sally, keep your head down. Oh, keep your feet in the box. Oh, she's throwing this pitch. Too much. Also, maybe... Right?
I know.
You can't process all that. Right?
Well, it's funny. When I was coaching at the collegiate level, I was sitting there with the head coach, and, they are so, from a recruiting standpoint, turned off by that. Like, they're like, whose parent is that? Because it's not the kid I want to recruit. Because number one, that kid's going to be thinking too much. But number two, the parent is overbearing and already a problem at just the travel ball level. So nobody wants to deal with that at the collegiate level. Just FYI to parents out there.
So true. I have seen it time and again. People will have their little list of players, and you're watching number 5. Goodbye, number 5. Like,
it's true. That happens all the time.
It's that straightforward.
Yes. Or if you've ever seen a parent like freak out and start throwing stuff, I mean, this is why the importance of the mental game is so paramount for parents as well. Like, I've seen coaches literally ask, like, whose parent is that? And then it spreads around like wildfire, because if they know that there's a crazy parent, they don't want their colleagues dealing with that either, you know? So, guys, you know, parents, you need to check yourself too. It's not just about your kids. But I love that idea of we're looking for trends. So, like, what kind of trends would you say that we're looking for?
I like to see trends in especially how we react to adversity.
Ooh.
So, if, say, during a game, let's talk about hitters for a second, you are whiffing at the changeup every time. Okay, yes, they're whiffing at the changeup. Maybe it's a great changeup. Or is it the trend of they're not preparing and sitting changer, thinking, wait, like, know the difference? For pitchers, hey, they're getting hit hard this game. Is it that this team is really good at hitting their best pitch, which is usually a curveball? Maybe this team, probably not. Maybe this team's great at hitting outside. That was probably not an accurate example. But, okay, is the trend, is it just this one game where it's not working? Or is it, okay, all day today, your curveball's been off, so let's talk about what's going on with that. Just trying to take note when things go wrong and then kind of tally them in your head of, okay, that's like 3 times in a row that your changeup's gone in the dirt. What are you doing to cause it to do that? Whereas, like, okay, one changeup in the dirt, no need to freak out, we're okay. Maybe one little thing went wrong. But seeing those trends, I like the rule of 3s, 3 strikes, 3 outs. It's a softball thing.
But, I mean, yes, that makes good sense.
If you find it 3 times, that's what I call a trend.
That's very good. So that we don't need to, I mean, I do think we have that tendency as coaches, parents, all the way around, to be a little overreactive, where sometimes it's just better to, like, bite the tongue, because if we're overreactive, the kids will be overreactive too. I mean, they mirror what they see. You know, that's
absolutely
so paramount. So, but let's talk about ways to, like, that we would adjust in a game situation, and then we'll talk about definitely some ways that we could better prepare for game situations. Like, so, you know, let's say that game is kind of just not going in our favor, you know, let's say as a hitter, you know, a couple strikeouts, or as a pitcher, you know, you're getting hit. What are some things you could do actually in the moment to make some good adjustments?
Well, first of all, in-game stuff is reactive. So these are things that will most likely work, but in order to get better at games in general, you're going to need to practice them beforehand. It's a little asterisk. But in games, the main thing that I found helps the most is making sure you have perspective. So in that moment, I was that athlete. Everything seemed so dramatic. I explained this to one of my coworkers once who had no problems with mental games. She was super confident. I was like, in that moment when you make a mistake, it's so overwhelming and all-encompassing. It's like you just kicked a puppy. Like, whoa. Like, no one wants that. That, like, hurts your heartstrings. Like, I hope that evoked a negative reaction in you right now, because that's the point, is, like, it seems that dramatic in the moment. You need to have your way of stepping back, even if it's just one step. So in the moment, you're on defense, you just made an error, quite literally step away from your position for a second. Even if it's just a few feet, walk away. If you're an outfielder, walk a few steps toward the fence. If you're a pitcher, just walk to the back of the circle. And then the next thing you can do is give yourself a focal point. So Ken Ravizza talks about this a lot. Another great book, Heads Up Baseball, and now Heads Up Baseball 2. Fantastic resources.
Guys, you better write this down.
Oh, so good stuff. Write those down. But he likes to say, find a focal point that you can rely on that is just a visual reminder of you've got this. So, like, you can look at the foul pole. That's Evan Longoria does that. I just shot a video of him, so I remember that one. But then he just looks at the foul pole and says, I've got this. So first thing, perspective, then have a focal point, and the third thing is breathe. Breathing is the number one thing. Ask any sports psychologist. Like, when they ask their athletes, like, what do you remember that I taught you? It's always breath. On all my evals, it was always like, oh, like being able to take a deep breath and calm myself. It's super simple, but so effective. So making sure you know how to take a correct breath. So diaphragm breath, breathing from the belly, automatically calms you down, gets more oxygen to your mind and your muscles, and just in that moment can give you the clarity to be like, okay, I'm fine. So just those three things, quick. Make sure you have the perspective enough to notice that, okay, things are going out of control, I need to step out. Have that focal point, and then breathe.
I love that. And also because I think people do not realize how shallow their breathing becomes. Like, when we talk a lot about the psych scale, you know, so all my girls know what the psych scale is at this point, but just as a quick recap, you know, 0 to 10, you know, do you perform your best when you're at a 10 and you're like basically ready to murder someone, or you're at a 0 and you're nearly ready for sleep? Most people do not fall to those extremes. You know, most of the time there's a gradient, obviously. But the idea is, you know, let's say, you know, you perform your best at like a 7 or an 8, you know. So in your case, you know, you're going to listen to some, you know, crazy music beforehand. You're going to get yourself pumped up. But if you perform better at like a 2 or a 3, and some people really do, you have to always check to make sure you're not getting that shallow breathing, because sports in general, you know, and when you're doing a lot of physical activity, they precipitate, you know, you start breathing from, you know, like this. So you have to take that second. And at Stanford, I know they even like here would have them hold their ribs in practice, like diaphragmatic breathing, just to like calm down. Like you said, take a step back. I think that's super, super important. So important.
Absolutely. I've had people like hold their breath.
Yeah.
Like use through a whole pitch sequence without taking a breath.
That would be me.
Yeah. Breathe. So I would be like, hey, Jillian, breathe. Oh.
Yes. That's why I feel like I'm going to pass out, because I need to breathe. It's vital for living, right? But see, now these are adjustments we can make in a game. But as Melanie had pointed out before, like, it is so vital to practice these behaviors and the things that you want to achieve and the things you want to visualize on a daily basis. Like, people pour all their energy into their physical game. And I feel like the other components that they're always leaving out nutrition. You cannot perform well if you're going to McDonald's in between games. I'm sorry, you can't. They're cross-training, which means that certain muscles are getting overdeveloped all the time. And number 3 is like that mental game. They only address it if it becomes a problem. They do not ever address it previous to becoming a problem, which is just waiting for something to happen, in my opinion. So tell us about like what a good daily routine would be to help, like, so that every single day we're developing these mental skills.
Well, there are 5 cardinal skills, the sports psych thing, that you should really focus on in your whole practice of being a better performer, and then not just performing on the field, but as a person. And you can build them into your routine however you wish. Every person is different, but these 5 skills are generally the most helpful. So first is imagery. So first, learning how to do imagery well. Visualization is not the same. So imagery is more vivid, where you not only see what's happening, but you can hear it. You can feel it. So the difference between, like, imagine yourself hitting. No, feel the bat in your hands. Pictures, feel the seams against your fingers. Like, as you can make it more and more vivid, then it's almost like a mind trick. It tricks your brain into thinking it's actually happening. So people who are really skilled at imagery, they can sit there literally on the bench with their eyes closed, and they're sending the same signals from their brain to their muscles as they would if they were actually performing. So major leaguers talk about like seeing the pitcher they're going to face, because they face the same guys over and over again. They know exactly what pitches are coming. They know what it looks like from the box, and they're practicing it coming in, feeling the timing, feeling the strength in their muscles firing, and then making that contact. Like, we all know what a good hit sounds like. Pitchers all know what it sounds like when it really smacks that glove. Like, we all know those little things, the feeling of your metal cleats in the dirt. I bet you can feel that right now.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what makes the best kind of imagery. So then, how? When? You can either do it beforehand. Some people do it the night before. Just spend 5 minutes going through scenarios, seeing yourself perform well, seeing yourself adjust to things that are going wrong. Or even in the moment. Like, my senior year, found that it was really helpful to, like, when I was up to bat, see where I wanted to hit the ball. Like, I went up there, I literally saw myself hitting it to the gap. And even if it didn't go there, or even, like, if I saw myself hitting it to left center, you gotta be specific. If it was an inside pitch, like, clearly that's not what you want. But then, I was lefty, by the way, if you're getting confused why I said left center. But then it just translates to your body like, hey, this is what I want, and it frees up your mind to do it, as opposed to analyzing bits and pieces. You see the end product and free your brain to react.
And I love how you also put in there, like, you're not only visualizing the positive, but you're also visualizing how you will react, right? So you're using imagery to visualize how you will react, because what I have read, and you can confirm or deny this, is that people who use imagery or use visualization to picture only the positive, then sometimes they struggle when adversity pops up. So it's good to imagine how you can react properly to something not going your way as well. That
absolutely.
Oh, good.
Absolutely.
That's good to know. Okay, awesome. So we're using vivid imagery. I made up my own word there. I'm like, vividry.
Vividry. I like it. Let's steal that.
You can use that. Yeah, that's fine. You can just go ahead with that. What else are we doing on a daily basis?
The next one that you've already touched on, I just call it a little bit different. I like, would you call it, the energy levels?
Oh, we call the psych scale, but
psych scale. I love it. So I just refer to it as energy level, but managing that and knowing it's called the optimal zone of performance is huge. So, like, whatever your ideal number is, you got to know that. And that's really interesting on teams, too, to see the polar opposites. Like, I was better high energy, so I purposely sought out my low energy friend. It's like, you, Kayla, like, when I get freaked out, I need you to come over and be like, yeah, you're fine. And she was so chill. She's like, Mel, you're fine. And I was like, you're right. Thank you.
Yeah, you have that totally zen person then, right?
Exactly. So having that go-to when you feel yourself going too high or too low, we all tend one way or the other. There'll be some days, like, where I'm usually at, like, a 7. Even now, like, I prepped for this. You asked me, I was like, I'm listening to music. Like, I prepped for this because I know I do better with higher energy, but I tend to go too high. So then my, I guess, strategy is the deep breath. Simple, quick, take a deep breath, calm it down. I start talking too fast. So that it was the same thing on the field. And for people who tended to go too low, that happens sometimes when, I call it when people go internal and start overanalyzing. You can tell it happens on the field when, like, the whole field gets quiet, which, okay, for people who are not pitchers and for pitchers to tell your friends, it sucks when you're on that mound by yourself and the whole team behind you is silent. So don't do that to your pitchers. Pitchers, explain to your teammates how important it is to hear them. Yeah. But yeah, if you go too low energy, you start going internal and you get quiet, you need to find your way out of it. So if that's going to somebody else and talking, if that's cheering, like, just all you don't have to make up a sing-song cheer, but you need to talk about things and get verbal. So I would just turn around, say the outs to my outfielders, talk about the play. just making sure you find your strategies. Music is super helpful, but in the game, you're not going to be like, time blue, I need a up-paced song. Right? Coach, can you take me out for an inning?
Right now. No, it doesn't work like that.
Or opposite, like, Coach, I need to be taken out for an inning, do some yoga.
Yeah.
You need to calm down. So having those quick in the moment things, right? Wouldn't that be great? Like, good, lay out your yoga mat.
Become very zen. But that's why I love. See, Melanie's giving you so much good stuff here. I'm taking notes. You guys better be taking notes here. But the other great thing that she said is how she sought out someone who can kind of be her opposite in terms of like where she's sitting on the psych scale. And I think that's so important. It's also really important. I find we use the term a lot in sort of the fitness and health aspect of my business. It's like find a success partner. And a success partner, you wouldn't want to find necessarily someone exactly like you. You would find someone who has goals exactly like you. So on the field, that's pretty easy. But if you're finding someone who's exactly like you, and you have two type A's always working together, you're going to just amplify everything about one another, and that's not always the best thing. So do keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Like, your goals need to align, but not necessarily your personalities.
No, sometimes it's good to be a little bit different. I think you probably find that in relationships too. If you read a lot about like relationships, just in general, you usually have one person that's a little bit more introverted, one person's a little bit more extroverted. If you have two extroverts always working together, you could see where that could go horribly wrong. Or two introverts, either way.
Yep. This is super, super quiet relationship.
We never talk. So you have imagery, you have the optimal zone of performance, which is kind of like the psych scale similar. What else do you do on a daily basis?
The next one for sure is important and more difficult than you think is positive self-talk.
Oh,
so, right? Mm-hmm. And that term sounds fluffy. It's not. I don't want you to think of it as like just motivation, just inspiration, or affirmations. Affirmations are fantastic, but that doesn't encompass self-talk. So self-talk is that inner critic. It's the little voice inside that is either confirming or going against your beliefs. So if you have a negative critic, you're always second-guessing yourself. You're always judging yourself. Like, that's a huge one. You're always doubting whether you're capable or whether even something you did that was successful was actually valid or good enough. So you have to really notice what your critic is saying and hopefully shifting it towards like validating good experiences. So, for example, you made, how about this one? Pitcher gives up a home run. Person with the super negative critic is like, you idiot, why'd you throw that? You suck. Like, you can't throw that pitch ever again. Like, God, might as well just pull me out, coach. Hey, pull me out right now. Like, that is the most heart-wrenching to me. I've actually seen that happen multiple times where a player actually looked to us coaches and asked to be pulled out. That's telling me your inner critic is so harsh on yourself that you just can't escape it. So noticing that and knowing that it's not okay, I guarantee you're not a mean person. Usually these critics are some of the most kind and generous people, but they're so mean to themselves when they're beating themselves up. Expectations are great. Perfectionism can be helpful, but only if you keep it in perspective and take the judgment out of it. So if I strive to be perfect. Recording this video, I'm like, I got my lights. I want to look good. I want to be able to see me. I want you to be able to hear me. But like, if this light burns out, if all of a sudden you can't hear me, whatever, I'll type in some captions. Knowing that striving for perfection and being perfect are two separate things. And knowing that if you judge yourself, because a lot of times we think that like we're projecting onto others, like, oh, they're judging me for that pitch. Like my teammates hate me now. They want me to be pulled too, coach. Like, just pull me. When really, the teammate, okay, yeah, everyone's disappointed. Like, oh, dang. But they're moving on to the next thing. They're probably thinking about themselves. worry about what they have to do next. So really, it's all in your own head, and you're being your worst enemy. So flipping that, you got to catch yourself in the moment, and then flipping it to something productive. So in that pitching example, oh my gosh, I just gave up a home run. What if it's like, oh, it's the last inning. Now they just went up by one. We have one more chance. That's tough. Like, that's a real stressful situation. Okay, well, what am I going to do about it now? Next hitter's up. What is she good at? Okay, well, she's good at this pitch. I'm going to throw her this because I know I can fool her. Oh, there goes my mic. Sorry about that. But knowing that there's always something next, something you can do. So instead of just flipping it to positive, like, you're never going to be okay with something like that. Like, oh, darn. Oh, did you guys see how far that went? Like, wow, that got past me fast. Like, no one's going to get there if you actually are competitive and care about the game. But you can flip it to like, oh, okay. Well, not judging myself. That was a bad pitch. I'm not a bad pitcher. Let's move on.
Very good. Yeah, that's a very, very good point, because it's something else coming from High Performance Academy, which I just sort of extrapolates on what you're saying a little bit, is so people who were super high performers in their research did a ton of positive self-talk, like on a daily basis, basically, and would talk to themselves a lot of the time in the third person, would be like, all right, Julie, you're going to go out there and kill it today, you're going to do this and that, this sort of thing, which might sound a little crazy to some of us, but these are like the highest performers in the world. The people who were lower performance had, as you might expect, a lot of negative self-talk, right? So they're like, oh, you suck, you're just not good at anything, like, why do you even try, like that sort of stuff. But then this is the really surprising one. What do you think the average performers did?
Ooh. I don't know.
No self-talk at all. Which
that makes sense.
Which is so funny, because I think that is average. I think most of us, when I came back from High Performance Academy, I'm like, I'm going to start talking to myself every day with positive self-talk. And then like a week later, I'm like, well, I totally forgot about that. So, but I do think that's kind of the average thing, is that we have no self-talk at all. Again, unless something really negative happens, and then we're quick to be negative. So I think, guys, that's so important, because we're talking about stuff you want to do on a daily basis here. So let's make these good habits happen, okay? So we've got imagery, we've got optimal zone of performance, we've got positive self-talk. What else?
Let me see what the other one. Oh, focus. Focus. So it's not just like focus in. Okay, got it. A lot of things are grabbing for our attention, and we have a limited amount of focus. So it is learning how to attend to the important things and kind of tune out the things that don't matter. And we typically tend to, there's 4 types of focus. So there's broad external. So don't need pictures again during at bat. So broad external is the situation. All right, we got 2 outs. Got the number 9 batter coming up. It's the first inning. We are up by a run. Okay, that's broad external. Then you go to narrow external. So, okay, with the situation, what I want to do? 2 outs. I want to get her to ground out, pop out. That's what I want to do. Keep it simple. So then the next one is broad internal, which is, all right, am I good? Am I ready to go? You kind of do a self-check. It's usually not this purposeful or this like outward. You're not like on the mountain saying, am I good? Yeah. But it's still that feeling of like, I'm relaxed. I'm in my good psych zone. We're good to go. And then the last thing is that narrow focus, where you just focus on the glove, where we're going to hit, or, well, no one sets up early anymore, where we're going to throw that pitch. Well, you shouldn't set up early, catchers, but where you're going to throw that pitch. So when you go through those zones, typically you're strongest in one. So maybe you're really good at analyzing the situation. And then from there, you can make your plan. But usually, the one you're strongest in is also the one you tend to get stuck in. So if you're really good at analyzing situations, sometimes you're stuck on that, and you're thinking about all the situations in your head. I can throw this pitch, I can throw that pitch, but when I do this, I can do this and that. Like, making sure that we don't go too far. And then from that point, things that help are what I like to call keywords. No, I got it from somebody else. But having a like one word or short phrase that helps you remind you, like, oh, okay, focus in. So if you're one who gets stuck on the situation, maybe focus in on that where that pitch is going. So tell yourself, like, zoom focus. And it's got to be just something for you. It could be something completely silly. It could be something that doesn't seem to make sense to somebody else, but doesn't matter. It has to make sense to you. So knowing where we tend to lose focus, do you get distracted by your coach? Do you get distracted by the fans on the other team? What distracts you? And then what's just one key word or phrase to snap you back to where you need to be?
That's awesome. Or sometimes, like, so with hypnosis, we use what we call anchoring, which a lot of the time is just simply like a gesture you do to, like, bring you back. Because it is, I love what you said about, like, you know, if you tend to be good at analyzing, then sometimes you will also overanalyze. Like, your strong point is also your weak point. I honestly have never heard that before, but I feel like that makes 100% sense. Like, and it's just such a, wow, that's just brilliant. Like, that's just brilliant. So yes, that's why we don't ever want to overdevelop, right? We want to make sure that we're well-rounded.
Exactly.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Oh, taking big notes. And then I think you said you have one more, right? So we have imagery, optimal zone of performance, positive self-talk, focus, and then
routines. So having these routines and sticking with them. So I like to build these things into it, but maybe, like, okay, maybe you're not that great at imagery yet. You don't really feel like it's helping you right now. You don't have to do that one, but making sure you're focusing, you at the right energy level, you got some self-talk, and building that into your routine. So, like, everyone has a physical routine. That needs to be pretty consistent too. So, like, you just throw a pitch, you get the ball back from your catcher. What's your routine? Do you walk to the back of the circle? How do you walk to the back of the circle? Do you walk around the mound? Do you walk through the mound? Do you stand back there for a second? Do you step outside the circle? All these little things are part of the physical routine. Now add in what you need mentally. So I'm back at the circle, and I tend to get too fast in between my pitches, so I'm going to take one deep breath and then step on the mound. Or I tend to hold on to the last pitch too long, so I'm going to give myself until I get to the back of that circle and turn around to, like, think about, okay, what went wrong with that pitch, how am I going to change it, and then as soon as I turn around, okay, focus on that next pitch. So building those routines into everything you do.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Because that's something I almost never see anyone do in a practice environment.
Right.
Develop a routine in between.
Right. Everyone thinks, like, oh, it's good at game day. Okay, good luck.
Yes. But that I think is the problem. Or, like, I'll say that a lot of the time in lessons. I'll be like, well, how you're setting up is illegal. We'll just say, well, I don't do that in games. Well, what's preventing you from doing that in a game? Because you do it illegally every time you're here.
Yes.
You know? So you have to remember what you practice is what you're going to execute, you know. So, like, that's just a super important point. I love the idea of doing routines there. Oh, I mean, so at this point, if you could kind of go back and talk to your former self, like the one who would get all frazzled and frustrated and things like that, what do you think you would say to her that could get through to her and bring her to that higher level?
I think it was what really got to me in the end was you're being selfish.
Brilliant.
Like, it hurts to hear, and it doesn't feel good, but it's the truth. By not being your mental best, you're being selfish because you can't help out your teammates. And this, I mean, I was more of a negative example, but like we talked about earlier, like, you don't have to wait until things go wrong or until you're in a slump to try to figure out the mental game. Like, you should be building this into your everyday life. Like, it's selfish for your teammates and selfish for your own personal well-being. Like, it's the same thing with nutrition and cross-training and all these things we're talking about. Like, why not be your best self? Like, if you're not trying to be your best self, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, you're just floating along.
I completely agree with that. There's a Japanese word called kaizen, which I like absolutely love the concept of, which is, basically like that you're getting a little better every day. And for anyone who's read The Compound Effect, which in my opinion is a must read, like I feel like everyone in the universe should read The Compound Effect. Totally forgot the name of the author, but anyway, you can look it up. Um, it's one of these things where, if you're getting, even 2% better, or even just 1% better, every day, think about you got like over 300% better before the end of the year. Like
Hmm.
so that idea of taking like small steps in the right direction every day, because we hear a lot of the time in the media, and I think this is with diet and things like this too, that there are a million quick fixes.
Mm.
Oh, my little chickadees, there are no quick fixes for anything.
Nope.
Everything is progressive.
Hmm.
so, so,
Yeah.
what is one big message that you have for the population of softball players out there and athletes out there who tend to struggle with the mental game?
I think the main thing I want everyone to know is that there are a lot of things we do not have control of in this world, but this is one thing that you do have the power to choose. You can choose to get mentally stronger. It's completely within your power, and it will take time. It's not magic. Like we said, there are no quick fixes,
Mm-hmm.
but you can start today getting mentally stronger in your performance and in life. And I think that kind of gives you more power, whereas when we're stuck in these modes of beating ourselves up and feeling like we can't do anything right, we can't get better, it brings some of that power back.
Yes.
So you have the choice and the power to be stronger.
And what I'm totally going to add to that is, if you are investing if you struggle with the mental game and you're investing all of your resources in the physical game, like this is why you need to hire someone like Melanie. You know what I mean? Like, because most coaches, unless they have a psych background or unless they have a background kind of in more the mental game, are not going to be able to address that in the same way that a sports psychologist who has played your sport is going to be able to address it. So, I mean, I do think you have to learn how to like allocate your resources, and like if your goal is to play a Division 1, but like let's talk about this, because you could have four different girls throwing 62 miles an hour, and some of those girls will just not make it to the Division 1 level strictly because they cannot get their mental game together, having nothing at all to do with physical skill. And
Mm-hmm.
so to me, as I get older, that's where everything is really in the mental game. This is why it's so important. So,
I agree.
um, so that's why what Melanie's done for us just as a community, I can't be more grateful. But girls, ladies, parents, you gotta hop on this. Only the first three people to email her, right, at Mel at the mental. Oh, sorry. Nope. Revise.
I messed you up on that one,
Mel
my bad.
at mentalsweetspot.com. And that is her website, mentalsweetspot.com. And this is how we build our skills off the field. This is how we get stronger on the field. This is how we end up playing at that higher level collegiately. And parents, don't be afraid to reach out either, because your mental performance on the field, I feel like, is just as important, because they're modeling what they're going to see in you.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my God, let me say, if you have a hand wringing, anxious parent that's there all the time, there's no way your child is not going to be anxious. Like, it's impossible, because they're feeding off that energy. So
Mm-hmm.
you need to kind of look, internally as well.
Totally
So
agree.
did I miss anything though? Is there anything that we didn't put? We got your website. Oh, do we have a Facebook page or a Twitter account we
Yes.
should follow?
Yes.
Lead us the way.
Facebook.com/mental sweet spot.
Oh, beautiful. Love that title. Um, so, all right, guys, contact her. Be one of the first three. There are only three. Okay, $50 value, which is absolutely amazing. Mel at mentalsweetspot.com, website, mentalsweetspot.com, and Facebook.
Oh,
Mental
One more thing. If you go to that website, even if you're not one of the proactive first three, I've got a free mental strength evaluation. It's just a video that goes through what I have 7 C's that I think encompass mental strength. So you can go there and at least get a start on what your best strengths are and what you need to work on. So you can always go there and start with that.
Oh, see how amazing is her? How amazing is she, rather? We are going to be, we better be doing that, ladies, because we all need a little bit of that. So, thank you so much, Melanie. This has been absolutely amazing.
Thank you so much for having me.
Stay on for a quick second because we'll do a quick roundup afterwards. But, ladies, let's get through this. There's a huge, huge bucket of resources right now. So let's make sure we get all that out there. Let's get our mental games together. Let's start now because this is the off season. This is the time to do it. So we will see you guys soon.